Hi there, I'm Garrett, and this is Night Shift Ri3D at UCF. So I spent a lot of my time over these 3 days focusing on some vision code. We started off with a limelight, but we ran into some problems with that, so we had to kind of pivot. We did play around with, we evaluated using photon vision on a Raspberry Pi coprocessor, but the solution we actually ended up using is just running AprilTag detector directly on our Robo Rio 2. Um, if you look online, Chief Delphi, Reddit, there's a lot of people saying that this is impossible, it can't be done. So we're kind of worried that this wouldn't work very well. But we got 5 to 10 FPS on the AprilTag detection up to like 20, 30 feet. It was very reliable. We got good pose estimates and all that. So that was a really good sign that this system would work. So we played around a little bit with doing some field-centric stuff where you're actually trying to look at the AprilTag, figure out, where is your robot relative to the AprilTag, where is the center of the hub relative to the AprilTag, and actually kind of like combine all these things. But it was kind of working, but not really. So we, in the name of getting things done in 3 days, we simplified down. So instead of actually trying to figure out where the center of the hub, we just pick the closest AprilTag that we can see. You can figure out distance based on how big the tag is, because we know this is a 6.5 inches, I believe. And so if it's this many pixels on your screen, and you know the properties of your camera, you can essentially figure out exactly how far away it is. And so we just pick the closest AprilTag and shoot at that. So you point your robot in the direction of the AprilTag. You change. We have a shooter with a hood, so you change the hood angle to hopefully get it at the right distance. And we haven't done a lot of testing with that, but the core pieces are all there. We're pleasantly surprised that the AprilTag detector that's baked into WPI lib, there's no extra fancy libraries you need, no coprocessor. It just worked pretty well. So if you're on a tight budget, or just you're in a time crunch, this is a valid option to try. You might not be able to do some of the more complicated stuff that limelights and photon visions give you, and they are certainly great tools to have, and I would definitely recommend playing around with those. But this is an option. You can just run the AprilTag detectors directly on the Rio 2. It's powerful enough to get relatively good FPS, and we're using like the worst like Microsoft HD 3000 camera, so you don't need a fancy global shutter camera. There is pretty bad rolling shutter effects, so you have to account for that in your code. You make sure your robot's mostly stationary when you do the detection. But again, if you're on a tight budget, tight time frame, just plug a webcam into your Robo Rio and start writing some code. We used a lot of AI to help, or at least I used a lot of AI to help with this. It works pretty well. It understands the WPI lib libraries, and it can, as long as you kind of understand your code base and the framework you're using, it's pretty familiar with first best practices, so it knows how to do command-based robot code, and it can figure all this stuff out. As long as you're kind of monitoring it, pushing it in the right direction, you can get some pretty effective code in a pretty short amount of time. I think it'd be worth to go back and comb through that and make sure it's everything that you're doing is important and necessary and things like that. But it did work, and that's the important thing, is that with very little resources, very little time, you can get decent vision code up and running. So there's not a lot of reason why really anyone shouldn't have at least a simple, aim assist or some autonomous by week one. This is something that is achievable with today's technology, and you don't need a lot of money or resources to do it.